Let me introduce myself. My name is Lieutenant Colonel Tony Anthony, United States Marine Corps. People say Tony Anthony, isn't that redundant? It is. But it's like Andy Anderson, you know. So, my real name is Clarence Thurston Anthony Jr. So now you know why I go by Tony. Let me just say it's an honor and a privilege to be able to be part of this ceremony this morning, honoring a brother Marine, but also a friend, Master Sergeant Rick Pittman. In doing this, we just got finished with another ceremony earlier, and Paul was the MC for that one, and I'm doing this one. So Paul is going to be assisting me today. He's a Marine, and I'm going to let him introduce himself. Paul?
Hoorah, Tony. Good morning, everybody. Thank you all for being here to honor Master Sergeant Pittman this morning. It's an absolute honor for me as well as a trustee here at the association to be a part of this ceremony. Former Marine officer, major active duty for about 8 years, a couple tours in Afghanistan, some time in Okinawa and California. And it's always an honor for me to do these ceremonies, especially for a fellow Marine and a Medal of Honor recipient. So thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Also assisting today, we have a Marine veteran. His name is Roy Zanny, and Roy is a member of the Buglers across America, and he will be rendering taps at the conclusion of our ceremony. So, Roy, where are you? Right here. There he is, right up there on top. Roy, we really appreciate your coming out as well. We do have a couple of VIPs that we should introduce as well. We have a Medal of Honor recipient, Colonel Mojeski. Colonel Mo, where are you? Over here. Thank you, sir. We appreciate your coming out. And also we have Lieutenant General Hanlon, Marine Corps retired, who is also here as well. General Hanlon, welcome. At this time, we like to always begin our ceremonies by doing the pledge to the flag. So if all would rise and join me in pledging allegiance to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. Before we start, Paul introduced himself and some of his background. I too, of course, I'm a retired Marine. Joined the Marine Corps in 1955, went through boot camp here, MCRD San Diego. Retired in 1997 after having served every grade of enlisted through gunnery sergeant, every grade of warrant officer, first lieutenant and a captain twice. Retired as lieutenant colonel. It was a 42 years, 7 months, and 21 days of not always good times, but still a lot of good memories as well. So that's a little bit about my background. I was an 03 for many years and finished up in military police. And of course, that's what Rick ended up as well, military police. Today we are here to honor Master Sergeant Pittman, Medal of Honor recipient and military veteran who served his country during the Vietnam War and the Cold War, which we always forget about. What is a military veteran? A military veteran is defined by federal law as any person who served for any length of time in any military service. But a military veteran is something more. He or she may be described as possessing the following: duty, commitment, courage, honor, loyalty, sacrifice, selfless service. That well defines a veteran. These are ordinary men and women who have made a conscious decision to raise their right hand and swear an oath to the United States, to become something greater than themselves and to serve, protect, and defend our nation from enemies, both foreign and domestic. There's nothing more noble than service to our country. While Soledad Memorial Association honors soldiers, sailors, Marines, airmen, Coast Guard, and merchant Marines who have served in the past. All of us who have served, and I know many of you here have served, remember that we had to take an oath in order to join the service. And in that oath, we promised to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and to bear true faith and allegiance to the same. Master Sergeant Pittman, took that oath as well as you did. While a simple oath, it is not a simple calling. Often veterans and active duty personnel are approached by fellow Americans with a very simple phrase that all love to hear. Thank you for your service, or thank you for serving. At this time, I'm going to turn the mic over to Paul, and he's going to give a little description of what we have here for the memorial. Paul?
Thank you, Tony. So, Master Sergeant Pittman is going to be in great company up here, because up on these walls we have, about 4,000 or 5,000 stories of fellow veterans who've served their nation honorably. I'm going to tell you a little bit of the history of the memorial itself and share with you some of the stories on these walls. So for those of you who may be from out of town, we'll also talk about how lucky we are to still have the memorial as it is today in the struggle. So in 1954, the memorial as we know it was erected, or this cross as we know was erected, and the memorial was for World War I, World War II, and Korean veterans. And that's how it started. But it grew beyond that to honor all veterans who served their country honorably. And with that, we're very unique as the largest veterans memorial west of the Mississippi. And we're very unique because we have veterans that are honored on these walls. I'm actually looking at one of them, dating all the way back from the Revolutionary War through current conflicts. So this is not a war memorial, this is a veterans memorial honoring all services, all ranks, and folks who've served in all conflicts on through current conflicts today. To orient us a little bit, as we are on the highest point here in La Jolla, we're looking south down to Coronado Island and east to Laguna Mountains, and then to our north we have Torrey Pines Golf Course, and then obviously west the beautiful Pacific Ocean. But what's unique about this location as well is we're surrounded by some legendary military installations as well. North Island, you can actually see it just behind us. We have Marine Corps Air Station, Miramar, and then just to the north, Camp Pendleton. So what a special and beautiful location it is. A little hazy today, but on a clear day you can see clear down to Mexico. And this memorial is very special to me because I'm sure like many others here in attendance have brothers and sisters who are honored up here, fathers, sons, and that is what makes this so special. And I see a lot of family members, and part of, for me, what's important about this memorial is that these stories will be here for generations, and you'll be able to take your children and their children to honor folks like Master Sergeant Pittman. So a long-held dream was realized in July of 2015 when this half-acre parcel of land that we're on right now was sold by the United States government to the Mount Soledad Memorial Association. That was after almost a 25-year struggle of litigation. Congress passed and the President signed the National Defense Authorization Act of 2014, which approved the historic sale of our monument here, which made it possible for us to end that litigation, keep the cross, and keep the memorial as it is today. So we greatly appreciate everybody's support in helping us with that. Let's give a round of applause. We'll all be able to still have this here. Thank you. So I want to mention some of the great company that Master Sergeant Pittman will be up here with on these walls. So we have a number of presidents to include Dwight D. Eisenhower, Gerald Ford, Reagan, Harry Truman, Teddy Roosevelt. We also have a number of Medal of Honor recipients to include Pappy Boyington. We have we have Patrick Brady up here as well, and Jay Vargas, a Marine Colonel, local here, I'm sure friends with a number of you here in the crowd. We also have other notables, such as Winston Churchill. So you're probably wondering, how's Winston Churchill up here? But he was honored by Congress as a veteran. And then, who here might be able to name somebody who is an honorary veteran who never served in the military?
Bob Hope.
Yes, who said it? Yeah, good job. So Bob Hope is up here. We also have Jerry Coleman. He was a USMC aviator who flew combat missions both in World War II and Korean conflicts. And Jerry was called to duty when he was a second baseman on the New York Yankees. He was also a San Diego sportscaster for over 40 years. He's a local, and I'm sure many of you know and love him, and he's up here as well. And today we have another dignitary who we're honoring, Master Sergeant Rick Pittman. I'm going to share with you his biography. Master Sergeant Richard Pittman, USMC, retired 26 May 1945 to 13 October 2016. Master Sergeant Richard Allen Pittman was born in French Camp, California, 26 May 1945, to Alice A. and Billie Jean Pittman, the oldest of 4 children born to the couple. Rick and his younger siblings ended up raised primarily by a single mother. When Rick was young, he had a couple of surgeries on his right eye to remove a cataract. The surgeries left him legally blind in that eye, but not disabled. Rick went through childhood like every other child, never limited by his vision. He played sports in high school, fired guns quite accurately with his grandfather, and never felt he was any different than any other kid. After graduating from Franklin High School in May of 1964, Rick began attempting to enlist in the military, his original goal to be a Green Beret. Rick had previously attempted to enlist in the Army Reserves in the spring of 1963, but was turned down due to the blindness in his right eye. The denial by the Army Reserves did not stop him. He attempted to enlist with each branch of the military to no avail. The only thing stopping this process was his vision. And what a patriot. So, Rick went to the Marine Reserve enlistment station and made one last attempt. When the physician performing the physicals told him to cover his right eye with his right hand and read a chart, Rick did just that. Then the physician told him to cover the left eye with his left hand and read the chart. Rick covered his right eye with his left hand and read the chart again. It worked. He was cleared for entry to the United States Marine Reserve. So now you all know how to get in the reserve. During training with the reserves, Rick became an expert rifleman, even left-handed. Shortly after training with the reserves, training with the reserves was completed. In the throes of the Vietnam War, the reserves asked for volunteers to active duty. Rick was one of the first of that unit to step up. He became an active duty U.S. Marine effective November 1st, 1965. Being deployed to Vietnam in late 1965, Rick was assigned as a rifleman with India Company 3-5. He moved to the rank of Lance Corporal by spring of 1966. Pittman was promoted to sergeant prior to his being decorated. While a rifleman in Vietnam, Lance Corporal Pittman participated in 7 operations: Operation Deckhouse, Joint Operation Nathan Hale, Operation Deckhouse 3, Operations Hastings, Operation Colorado, Napa, and DeSoto. All of these operations took place over the span of 3 official campaigns: Vietnam Counteroffensive, Vietnam Counteroffensive Phase 2, and Vietnam Counteroffensive Phase 3. Operation Hastings took place from July 1st through August 3rd, 1966. It was this operation that led Lance Corporal Pittman being nominated and ultimately decorated with a Congressional Medal of Honor. During the operation, Pittman was at the tail end of 200-plus U.S. Marines assigned to establish radio communications at the top of Hill 362. While single-file hiking up the trail, Lance Corporal Pittman had pointed out a few enemy soldiers off to the sides to his commanding officer. The CO told Pittman to just keep moving as if they hadn't been seen. Pittman followed orders until the Marines were completely surrounded and ambushed by the enemy forces. Pittman's actions are described in detail in a citation accompanying the Congressional Medal of Honor, which I'll read to you now. For conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty. While Company 1 was conducting an operation along the axis of a narrow jungle trail, the leading company elements suffered numerous casualties when they suddenly came under heavy enemy fire from a well-concealed and numerically superior enemy force. Hearing the engaged Marines' calls for more firepower, Sergeant Pittman quickly exchanged his rifle for a machine gun and several belts of ammunition, left the relative safety of his platoon, and unhesitatingly rushed forward to aid his comrades. Taken under intense enemy small arms fire at point-blank range during his advance, he returned the fire, silencing the enemy position. As Sergeant Pittman continued to forge forward to aid members of his leading platoon, he again came under heavy fire from 2 automatic weapons, which he promptly destroyed. Learning that there were additional wounded Marines 50 yards further along the trail, he braved a withering hail of enemy mortar and small arms fire to continue onward. As he reached the position where the leading Marines had fallen, he was suddenly confronted with a bold frontal attack by 30 to 40 enemy. Totally disregarding his safety, he calmly established a position in the middle of the trail and raked the advancing enemy with devastating machine gun fire. His weapon rendered ineffective, he picked up an enemy submachine gun and again, together with a pistol seized from a fallen comrade, continued his lethal fire until the enemy force had withdrawn. Having exhausted his ammunition except for a grenade which he hurled at the enemy, he then rejoined the platoon. Sergeant Pittman's daring initiative, bold fighting spirit, and selfless devotion to duty inflicted casualties, disrupted the enemy attack, and saved the lives of many of his wounded comrades. His personal valor, at grave risk of himself, reflects the highest credit upon himself, the Marine Corps, and the U.S. Naval Service. Signed, Lyndon B. Johnson, President of the United States. After a 3rd tour in Vietnam, Sergeant Pittman returned to the States as of September 1967 and was stationed in Camp Pendleton, California. It was in Pendleton that Pittman contracted an eye infection. When Pittman sought medical care for the eye infection, it was rediscovered by a military medical provider that Pittman was blind in his right eye. It only took a couple years. Unacceptable to the Marines, Sergeant Pittman was honorably discharged and returned to his home of Stockton, California in early April 1968. 3 short weeks later, Sergeant Pittman was notified that he had been nominated and would be decorated for the Congressional Medal of Honor. He was decorated May 14, 1968 in Washington, D.C. Sergeant Pittman was accompanied by his wife, his mother, and all of his siblings. The ceremony was the first time in military history that a member from each branch of the United States Armed Forces would be decorated with a Congressional Medal of Honor on the same day. Sergeant Pittman and the 3 recipients also dedicated a Hall of Heroes in the Pentagon building that same day. In early 1970, the United States Marine Corps issues a medical waiver to Rick Pittman, allowing to re-enlist in active duty as a Marine. Think about that. He could have just called it a day, but man, he wanted to be a Marine. Sergeant Pittman went on to serve 2 overseas assignments in Okinawa, Japan, 2 assignments of recruiting duty in Sacramento, and finished his military service the last several years at Camp Pendleton in Oceanside, California. Retiring as a Master Sergeant in October 1988, Master Sergeant Pittman rounded out his Marine Corps service, having received the following medals for his service: Congressional Medal of Honor, National Defense Service Medal, Vietnam Service Medal with 3 Bronze Stars, Republic of Vietnam Campaign Medal, and multiple Good Conduct Medals. Following his retirement, Master Sergeant Pittman moved back to his hometown in the mid-1990s to be closer to his children, grandchildren, and siblings. In 2006, Master Sergeant Pittman Alma Mater School District, Stockton Unified School District, honored Master Sergeant Pittman with the dedication and opening of Richard A. Pittman Elementary School located in Stockton, California. What an honor. Master Sergeant Pittman spent the remainder of his retirement living in Stockton until his death on 13 October 2016. He is survived by 4 daughters, Gina, Tina, Julia, and Rochelle, and 9 grandchildren. Let's give the family a round of applause as well, please.
Thank you very much, Paul.
We're laughing at the good conduct part.
And we used to refer to it as didn't get caught medal. Let me say, that's the kind of stuff you make a movie out of, right? This is the Lance Corporal that did all that stuff, wasn't wounded. He was certainly being looked over by someone higher than us.
10 tall and bulletproof. That's what we call it.
Yeah, very, very fortunate. Today we are very lucky to have the sisters all here with us today, and it's an honor that you're able to be here with us. Thank you very much for coming. Now we do have a few people that want to say a few words, and the first speaker that we're going to have actually served with Rick in Vietnam. So, Mr. Holt, are you here?
He's here.
I'm first.
He's always.
I don't want to steal your thunder.
Please take it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's true. I was. Can everybody hear? I'm always confused with microphone. I was in that gunfight that Richard deserved his citation. But something that's always been in my mind, and at his funeral I felt remiss for not saying a few words. Richard, above all else, was an India Company guy. No matter what he did, India Company was the birth of him as a Marine. He was proud of being an India Company guy. To us, he was just another fella. I knew Richard to nod to it when we were in India Company, but only later did I have the opportunity, when he moved back to Stockton, to actually really get to know him. A series of phone calls which opened up a whole can of worms for Richard, because to the India guys, he was embarrassed to receive a Medal of Honor, because he knows he only did what needed to be done, and he did it really well. We lost a lot of guys that day. A few people were selected in our own hearts and minds as heroes. We knew nothing about medals. But when Richard wouldn't attend India Company reunion because he felt somewhat embarrassed, because he knew he was, in his heart, Lance Corporal Pittman of India Company, 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines. And on one of our very emotional phone calls, I reminded him, to us, that's all he was an India guy, and not let the medal beat him up, which I'm afraid there was a lot of baggage with accepting that medal. After I busted his chops for an inappropriate amount of time, I really think it did him a lot of good. One thing I learned when I got to know him in Stockton, this is what I'd prefer him to be known for, is he was one of the best men I ever met. Guys who join the Marines aren't necessarily known for being rational. And he was exactly that. He was a good man among his fellow men. And I learned that not just through our phone calls, but sitting across this kitchen table with a cup of coffee. It was such a burden off of Richard to have me sit there and chew on him occasionally. But he still carried the medal with all the honor that India Company deserved for that. And he knew his medal was representation of the guys of India Company, 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines, on that particular gunfight. He certainly deserved it. I mean, it was just passed over slightly, but there's no reason in the world why he wasn't just shot to pieces. He went everywhere because that's what needed to be done. He never thought of himself as a hero. I think that's one of the qualities of Medal of Honor recipients. Always, one thing that make them, or the quality of a hero, is really not believing they did anything heroic. They were just doing things for their fellow Marines. But Richard's daughters, if you want to know what Richard was really like, just sit across a few glasses of wine with his daughters, and you'll get the picture really quick. Thank you for your time. I just felt I needed to point out that Richard, above all else, was an India Company, 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines, Marine, a star. He would have told you that. But thank you for these moments.
Thank you. I think we may have some others that serve with Rick in Vietnam. If you're there, are there some others? Raise your hand. There to your rear, you got 2 others who served with Rick in Vietnam.
That's what
Also,
I meant to do. I meant to have
All India 35. Welcome.
John Olson and Doc Howell, one of our corpsmen, and why I didn't mention them is simply a personal insult.
Well, you're doing it now, so thank you. We appreciate that.
That's why we left you.
Rochelle wants to close us off, but before we call Rochelle, I was talking to General Hanlon before the ceremony, and he told me of his first meeting with Master Sergeant Rickman. General, would you share that story with the group here?
Thank you, Tony. Well, I did not know that I would have a chance to speak today. Let me say to the family that I can't think of a better way to spend a Saturday morning than be up here with you today. This is an extraordinary day for an extraordinary Marine. I'm just proud to be here to be able to share it with you, and yeah, wonderful day. As I was explaining, I was a young major coming out of Command Staff College in Quantico, Virginia, and had a set of orders to report to Camp Pendleton, California. So this would have been sometime, I think, around early 80s. And as we were driving out, you know, my wife and myself, 2 cars and a little baby. The idea was to get as quickly as we could to California because we had just bought a home and we needed to get there. Got to Camp Pendleton on a Friday afternoon, about 3:30, 4 o'clock in the day. And it's a Friday, and of course, most people are already leaving the base to go home for the weekend. But we drove up into the base. And back in those days, you were very, very sensitive about getting your car registered. The PMOs were really tough on you back in those days. So I went in with my civilian clothes up to the provost marshal's office there at Pendleton. And the parking lot was empty, but I pulled in with both cars, walked inside. And the place was empty except for one person. This one master sergeant in his Charlie uniform was sitting over the corner working. I walked in and I looked at him and I said, excuse me, Master Sergeant. I said, are we closed for the day? And he goes, well, I'm here. I guess we're not. And I said, well, maybe I should come back Monday. I just wanted to register my cars. We just got here. And he goes, well, if you're here, let's do it. So we sat down, started filling out the paperwork, and had a nice little conversation. And then, as one is wont to do, I just had to look at his uniform. And as my eyes went down on the uniform, I realized I was looking at the Congressional Medal of Honor. And I'll be honest with you, I had not seen many of those in my life on anybody. And I just kind of stunned for a second. I said, Master Sergeant, am I looking at what I think I'm looking at? And he goes, well, yes, Major, you are. And I went, wow. I said, geez, I feel badly about making you do this here on a Friday. I know what to say. You know, you're going, blah, blah, blah. And I'm sorry to, he goes, Major, this is what I do for a living. This is my job. Let's get it done. And I said, all right, very good. But that was to the points made earlier about his humility, his dignity, and the fact is that he was, at the end of the day, Medal of Honor notwithstanding, he was a Marine who was doing his job, and I saw it up close and personal that day. So one of the reasons I wanted to be here today was because I not only have I known his reputation, but I remember very vividly that day in the Provost Marshal's office back in 1980, that conversation I had with him. So it's a pleasure being here. Thank you, Tony, for letting me come.
Is there anyone here who wants to say a few words that hasn't been, other than, yeah, your sister does? Okay, which sister is this now? Okay, come on up here.
Thank you. Hello. Don't mind me. I wasn't really prepared for this, but the pressure of them. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to everybody for being here. Not everyone could make it to Dad's services in October, so we really appreciate everybody being here and their contributions to making this happen, and our baby sister's work to make this happen, because Rochelle is the only one who lives here, and Rochelle and her husband Richard did all of this without the rest of us. Also, someone made the comment that Dad was rational. And I would just like to say that for a Marine raising 4 girls, he displayed the most amount of rational patience that he could dig up, and sometimes it still wasn't enough. I was a rebel child. I almost ran over a base commander in a golf cart on Camp Pendleton once because I told Dad I wanted to go four-wheeling in the Flintstone mobile. To speak to his commitment to India Company, when Rochelle, I think, was in elementary school, she had a project on her family tree and asked Dad about our family crest. And he pointed to the wall to his 3-5 plaque and told her that that was our family crest. And she took that to school and said that was the Pittman family crest, and nobody knew any difference. So it is. So he was very rational, but he was also very dedicated and committed to the 3-5 and committed to the 4 of us and our honorary PB5, Danielle, who's also here. And I just wanted to say that I know he would love this. He came home to be near us when he retired, but this was always home to him also. And the 4 of us and our 9 grandchildren will always be very, very proud of him and always honor him with respect and dignity. Thank you.
Thank you. Before Rochelle closes, is there anyone else who may want to say a few words? If not, Rochelle, please.
Hello. I just want to thank everyone for being here. This is, damn it, Julie. This is possible because of everybody, not because of me. My husband, my sisters, my employer, Mr. Robbins. You guys made this possible. I just had a vision. I just wanted to do something. Like Julie said, this was Dad's home too. You know, we got to lay him to rest at home where he was born in Lodi in French Camp. But San Diego was very important to him. Camp Pendleton was very, very important to him. Dad got to be here once with his other recipients and a dedication for some of their plaques, and he didn't want one. But he said he felt close to God here. And he really liked this place because he felt like these Marines and their stories, these servicemen were close to God and they were together. And that's what it was about for him. It wasn't about being a hero or, being honored. He wouldn't like that. He wouldn't have liked the pomp and circumstance. That wasn't Dad. But what it was about for him was the service and the dedication and all these other stories that are here, not his. The plaque says on it, "A Marine's Marine," and I didn't put that there. Actually, the designers put that there, and I felt like that was the best thing to describe Dad. That's who Dad was. His medal wasn't who he was. He was a Marine's Marine. That's what mattered to him. That's why he liked being in San Diego so much. I really believe that he felt very close to everything surrounding him. He made family here. Mr. Robbins, Mr. Downs. He always felt like a piece of him was always here. So at least we have a place. A lot of people can come and he can be amongst his Marines. I just want to thank everyone for coming, for taking the time from so far, Detroit, Washington. That would have meant more to Dad than all of this. So just thank you, because it really isn't possible because of anything I did, but because of all of you guys and everybody who donated and made this possible.
Thank you. She mentioned the Marine's Marine. I had the good fortune to be the designer of the plaque. And when I looked at that plaque and after designing it, there's no better way I could describe Rick Pittman than to put Marine's Marine. Yes. We got one more that wants to say a few words.
My name is Ariana. I'm Julie's second oldest. I'm one of 9 of Richard's grandchildren. And to break up the emotionalness that almost got me, there's a time where that man decided he had enough patience to have all 9 of his grandchildren at once.
For the summer.
For the summer.
The whole summer.
That is also the summer he started smoking again. And he never did that again. He did have a lot of patience. I'm 24, my older brother's 25, Greg is 25, and the youngest, is 13. So if that doesn't tell you how much patience he needed, I don't know what will. I fell that summer actually, and I hurt my foot. I had never seen him around any of us that had gotten hurt. Ooh. Patience went out the window because he was super mad. He couldn't handle it. And then after, he washed it off and he made me feel better. Then came the patience and the emotional side of him. I thought he was going to cry more than I was. But I just wanted to take a moment to thank all of you as well. I had everything to say and then I lost it as soon as I got up here. I'm not very good at speaking in public, but I really appreciate you, Aunt Michelle. I appreciate you doing this. I'm so happy that my mom and I and my brother can make it down here, and all of you can make it here from very far away as well. But thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I'm going to read a Marine's poem. There are 2 kinds of people who understand Marines. Marines and the enemy. Everyone else has a second-hand opinion. All militaries harden their recruits, instill the basics, and bend young men and women to their will. The Marine Corps provides its members with a secret weapon. It gives them the unique culture of pride that makes the Marines the world's premier warrior force. The Navy has its ships, the Air Force has its planes, and the Army has its detailed doctrine. But culture, the values and assumptions that shape its members is all the Marines have. They call this culture esprit de corps. Alone among the U.S. military services, the Marines have bestowed their name on their enlisted ranks. The Army has Army officers and soldiers. The Navy has naval officers and sailors. The Air Force has Air Force officers and airmen. But Marines only have Marines. Semper Fi. At this time, we're going to have the rendering of taps by Roy. And if everyone would please stand. And those who are military veterans who have covers and want to salute, that's certainly appropriate. Or place it over your heart, whatever you feel appropriate in doing. At this time, taps. Thank you. Please take your seats. We're getting ready to wrap this up, but I wanted to recognize one other individual that didn't recognize earlier. Don Robbins, where are you? Don Robbins, another good friend of mine and also a good friend of Rick's. These flags are flags that Don brought up for the ceremony. Thank you very much, Don. They certainly added a lot. I also want to recognize, we have some trustees from the association that came out, and I want to recognize them as well. So the trustees out there, if you'd raise your hand so they know who you are. These are some of the folks who help run the association. We appreciate your coming to the ceremony as well. Let me just say, on behalf of the Mount Soledad Association, the Board of Trustees, and myself, I want to thank all of you, each one of you, for coming here. This was a special ceremony for a special person on a very special day. Thank you. I also want to thank, of course, the VIPs that we have here. Let me just say, VIPs, every individual here recognized on these walls is a VIP. But General Hanlon, we thank you for coming. Colonel Moe, appreciate your being here as well. So again, thank you, and this concludes our Veterans Ceremony for today.